What I will say in this documentary is based on 3 sources. First, my doctoral dissertation, which was completed at UCLA in 1973. The dissertation covers the history and the maintenance of the Santa Barbara City College Continuing Education Division up to 1973. My second source is my bound volume of continuing education class schedules from 1970 to 1982. I will use numerous pictures from this schedule. Many do not measure up to the standards of the digital age, but they are used because they are important historically. Also, a few of them are cropped by the nature of the binding. My third source is my memory of experiences as a coordinator in 1970-71 and an assistant dean of the Santa Barbara City College Continuing Education Division from 1971 to 1982. Before we begin, it is important to say that the program I am going to describe was, after 1971, sometimes called adult education, and other times it was referred to as continuing education. So it's important for you to know that they are one and the same. So now let's begin. From 1947 to 1952, on a small plot of land alongside Santa Barbara Street, the Santa Barbara Community Institute was born. The Institute had 3 component parts, namely Santa Barbara Junior College, University Extension, and Adult Education. These 3 programs would each become huge and powerful, but originally they were lumped together in a tiny complex containing the Alacama Theater and a few small cottages. Here is the historic Alacama Theater, and here is one of the remaining cottages. In 1947, Mr. Selmer O. Sam Wake left his position at Santa Barbara Junior High to become the principal of the Santa Barbara Adult Evening High School. His office was in a cottage similar to the one now on the screen. This is where he shared space with Santa Barbara Junior College and University Extension. In 5 years' time, Wake had exclusive control of this Alacama complex and was presiding over 5,000 students. Some were attending classes in the cottages surrounding the Alacama Theater. So in 1947, from his office in a quaint Santa Barbara cottage, Sam Wake began to build his national, pace-setting adult education program. His budget was originally in the $20,000 range, but by 1970, it was over $1 million. From 1947 to 1970, Wake increased adult ed classes over 800%. His 1970 schedule of classes was listed in the following categories: World Affairs and History, Humanities and Philosophy, English Literature and Writing, Understanding the Sciences, On Understanding Ourselves, On Understanding Children, Fine Arts, Theater Arts and Speech, Music, Foreign Languages, Home and Family Living, Business Education, technical vocational, English as a second language, basic education, adult evening high school, and Santa Barbara City College evening division. This enormous schedule was published each term as a 24-page tabloid-size supplement to the Santa Barbara News Press. Sam had 33,000 enrollments annually, and with 1/4 of the adults in the Santa Barbara area engaged in adult education classes, lectures, short courses. His non-credit enrichment courses were taught in large part by moonlighting professors from the University of California at Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara City College, as well as scholars from the Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions. A list of 80 facilities utilized by our Adult Continuing Education Division can be found in my doctoral dissertation. The list includes schools, churches, private businesses, retirement homes, hospitals, recreation centers, jails, libraries, medical clinics, YMCAs, and many other places. By 1972, Sam's administrative staff had grown to include himself as director and administrative dean, 4 assistant deans, 3 coordinator programmers, and numerous secretaries and part-time registrars. Yet the expanded staff was housed in the Alacama complex, with the same simple cottage headquarters that had served as Sam's base of operation in 1947. John B. Holden, president of the Adult Education Association of the USA, called Wake's program, quote, the longest, most effective, most diversified, and most community-responsive adult education program in the United States of America. And indeed, it was. How was this mammoth adult education program financed? Sam's budget utilized the following sources for revenue. First, a tuition, which consisted of a $3 registration fee per subject each semester. Second, local taxes. 1.1% of the local educational tax dollar went for adult education. These local taxes financed about 38% of Sam's program. Third, state assistance. All classes, including short courses and lecture series, receive state assistance on the basis of average daily attendance. State assistance financed about 40% of Sam's program. Fourth, federal assistance. Sam's program received federal support under Title III of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act and the Manpower Development and Training Act, and other sources. Federal assistance accounted for from 8 to 15% of Sam's program. And how did Sam build the public support that was fundamental to maintenance and expansion of his program? First, in 1951, he created a 40-member Community Advisory Council. This august body was composed of a gender-equal gathering of the most influential people in the Santa Barbara community. This council was informally consulted about classes and lectures to be offered. The council assembled at a restaurant conference room at the beginning of each term to hear and accept the new adult ed courses before they were presented to the College Board of Trustees. This brilliant procedure placed tremendous pressure on the governing board of City College, pressure to ratify Sam's program in its entirety. And board members were quite aware that Sam's advisory council was powerful enough to dominate the election process for new members of their board. So you see, the creation of the Community Advisory Council was a masterstroke. It probably made Sam the most politically powerful man in Santa Barbara. But this good man used his power judiciously for the improvement of every individual in the adult community. He provided help and assistance through education for every adult. After his retirement in November of 1972, Sam was the logical choice to lead the effort to pass school bonds for the college district. And so in 1973, he coordinated a successful $3.8 million bond campaign to purchase the Santa Barbara City College 34-acre West Campus. In addition, he recruited the first board of directors for the Santa Barbara City College Foundation and served as the foundation's first executive director for 7 years. It is important to say at this juncture that during his retirement, Sam also wrote 2 important histories of Santa Barbara City College. The titles are A History of the Santa Barbara Community College District, Personal Experiences and Observations, 1992, and The Joy of Learning, 75 Years of Adult Education in Santa Barbara, 1993. Both are in the Luria Library on campus. And now a brief account of my own entry into the program. In the late 1960s, I established a firm friendship with an important member of the Santa Barbara community. As a professor at Fullerton College, on 2 occasions, I brought my students to Santa Barbara's Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions, where we discussed peace topics with the distinguished fellows. I developed a firm working relationship with Frank K. Kelly, Vice President of the Center, and immediately upon becoming an administrator at Santa Barbara City College, I teamed with Frank to produce a lecture series titled, Do We Need a New U.S. Constitution? At the time, 33 states had called for a new constitution. If one more had joined the effort, a constitutional convention could have been convened. Here is the front page coverage of the Bagnall-Kelly lecture series that featured Senator McCarthy of Minnesota, Senator Morse of Oregon, and the famous political scientist Jack Peltison. Peltison would later become chancellor of the entire University of California system. We filled all the seats in the Libero Theater and placed over 200 chairs on stage to accommodate the overflow. The final evening of this 5-part series featured a debate between Robert Hutchins and Wayne Morse, which was televised on KCET, the Los Angeles PBS TV affiliate. Dr. Martin Bobgan Wake's longtime assistant dean, succeeded him in 1972. Martin had a steel-trap mind, a firm grasp of the details of his new assignment, and an aggressive leadership style. Soon after taking command, he hired 2 new coordinator programmers to program his past assigned areas. He then turned his past administrative responsibilities over to me and began an era of oversight that spanned decades and involved expansion of what, beginning in 1971, was called the Continuing Education Division. While Sam Wake retired with the title of Director and Administrative Dean, Dr. Bobgan retired as a Vice President of our college. I began the Bobgan era with the following assigned responsibilities: the supervision of from 85 to 100 teachers each term. They were assigned to the following areas of instruction: world affairs, humanities and philosophy, understanding the sciences, and music. All of these were non-credit areas in which I not only provided new topics and many new instructors each term, but also 2 or 3 lecture series as well. I was also in charge of Adult Evening High School, Adult Basic Education, English as a Second Language, and preparation for citizenship. In addition, I was assigned supervision of buildings and grounds, the student body account, audio-visual services, and the office staff. For the next 10 years, my workday began at 10 a.m. and ended about 10:45 p.m. when I pulled into my driveway each evening after providing the audio-visual technician a ride home. With all of the difficulties connected with this enormous workload, I found deep satisfaction in creating new classes and programming lecture series. Frank K. Kelly and I had a deep and abiding work relationship. We invited governors, senators, presidential candidates, and scholars to come to the Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions for daytime dialogues with the distinguished fellows, dialogues that were published nationally in the Center magazine, and in the evening they would appear in public lectures, co-sponsored by Santa Barbara City College Continuing Education and the Center. I was fortunate to have a working relationship with Paul Rellis as well. Paul founded the Community Environmental Center, an organization that co-sponsored a lecture series with continuing education that lasted for years. It was entitled The American Dream and the City of Man, and it featured such notables as Stuart Udall, Secretary of the Interior, and E.F. Schumacher, a British economist. One memorable series with the theme of developing alternative fuels featured Edward Teller, father of the H-bomb, on nuclear power, as well as Roger Billings, inventor of a hydrogen-powered automobile. Billings brought his automobile to the stage of the San Marcos High Auditorium. Here are a few of my lecture series as they appeared on the front page of the Adult Education section of the Santa Barbara News Press. Senator and presidential candidate George McGovern was the leadoff speaker in a series on liberalism. Movie star Eartha Kitt and Olympic champion Rafer Johnson were the featured speakers in a series on Black heritage. Distinguished historian Henry Steele Commager led a series on faith in government. Distinguished political scientist James McGregor Burns was the lead-off speaker in a series entitled The Politics of 1980. Ruth Carter Stapleton, sister to the president, spoke to a capacity audience in the 1,000-seat Santa Barbara Junior High Auditorium. Her topic was the mysterious energy of love. But the all-time attendance winner was Ramsey Clark, Attorney General to Presidents Kennedy and Johnson. Clark opened the bicentennial series of the American Revolution to a capacity audience in the 2,018-seat Arlington Theater. And now please indulge me as I share a brief account of my life after the Santa Barbara years. After 12 years at Santa Barbara City College, the heavy work assignment, the 12-hour work days, and the tension of completing my doctoral dissertation, all of these exacted a heavy toll on my first marriage. After a divorce, I opted for an early retirement, married my secretary, and we moved to a family cattle ranch in Utah. After 3 years in Utah, we enthusiastically returned to California. And once again, I worked in California schools. First, I served about 11 years as an adjunct in history at Miracosta College in Oceanside. During this period, I wrote and produced a television documentary that was entitled John F. Kennedy's Lost Pathway to Peace. It was narrated by Robert Vaughn, and it aired nationally on TBS and regionally on KCET Los Angeles. The air date on both stations was May 29, 1987, the 70th anniversary of Kennedy's birth. In 1992, I wrote a book entitled President John F. Kennedy's Grand and Global Alliance, World Order for the New Century. On May 29, 1992, the 75th anniversary of Kennedy's birth, I discussed this book with Charles Osgood on the CBS radio network. In 1998, I accepted a 60% assignment as an adjunct in history at Palomar College in San Marcos, California. My classes were held primarily at the Palomar Satellite at Camp Pendleton. My students were primarily Marines and naval personnel and their spouses, with a mixture of civilians who traveled to the base for my class. They were all highly motivated adults who were working on their college degrees in their spare time. In this period, I wrote the United States History Abstract, a popular United States history book that was published by Kendall Hunt. In a less serious vein, I did something about my lifelong passion for jazz. As a programmer in music at Santa Barbara City College, I had scheduled a number of jazz artists for the community. But at Palomar, I became more directly involved. I became a community volunteer jazz host at KKSM, the Palomar College radio station. I hosted a weekly show entitled Doc's Jazz. Without my knowledge, the station manager submitted one of the programs in a national competition sponsored by the Intercollegiate Broadcast System. Lo and behold, I was awarded first place, national trophy, in the volunteer category. My 18 years at Palomar College were the happiest days of my life. I retired in December of 2016 at the age of 86. In my last year, the college gave me the Distinguished Faculty Award. Los Angeles City College Foundation had added me to their list of distinguished alumni many years ago, but they made year 2016 special for me when they displayed this banner in the middle of their campus. One of the nicest surprises of my life happened in December 2016, in my last class at Camp Pendleton. When the last student finished his final exam and left the room, I began to erase the board when the whole class came pouring back into the room. They asked me to sit down with them. I did so, and then a student went to the front of the room with this handsome cherry wood plaque. I don't know how they found out, but the plaque had a list of all my teaching and administrative assignments since 1955. Next, a student got up with a handsome velvet dinner jacket and asked me to come up front and model it. Then another student got up and presented me with a black coffee cup, explaining that when it was filled with a hot beverage, it turned white with the smiling face of FDR. At the age of 88, I am genuinely happy, and I am deeply appreciative of all of the honors and awards. One of the greatest honors of my life, however, was the opportunity to be mentored for 2 precious years by the incomparable Sam Wake.